Joining us now, one of my absolute favorites, Alan Dershowitz. Alan, these are my last 4 days on terrestrial radio, regular radio, before I go into podcasting. I'm getting a little emotional. How are you?
Good. Well, we'll miss you, and we'll still see you on TV.
Yeah, the podcast is going to be probably bigger than the radio show, but it's better for my lifestyle in the afternoon instead of doing it in the morning and then working late at night. So, Professor, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the developments of the last several days. Again, the Democrats believe Donald Trump, it is without a doubt that Donald Trump has been cornered by the testimony of Michael Cohen, and he's in big trouble on at least campaign finance.
Well, I don't think he's in trouble on campaign finance because people forget that a candidate can contribute as much as he or she wants to his own campaign. If Bloomberg were to run and decide to give $1 billion to a campaign, that would be fine. If a candidate took $150,000 cash out of a bank and went over to a woman and said, I'm paying you this money explicitly so that you don't ruin my campaign and don't disclose a previous affair, that would be fine. So the only issue in the case is whether or not the money, the hush money, which is legal, was paid properly. Was it done through personal funds, corporate funds, campaign funds? And we don't know the answer to that question. And so it does not seem to me that that's a kind of impeachable offense or offense that would result in any kind of a serious prosecution. I've always thought the greatest vulnerabilities might well be business dealings that occurred before Trump became president. And I know they're looking into those, but those two are not impeachable offenses. For it to be an impeachable offense, it has to be a high crime that occurred during the presidency itself, or arguably on the road to the presidency when he was a candidate. I just don't see that. So I think we're going to see a report that has a lot of sin in it, but not a lot of crime. And as far as the Flynn thing, that's fascinating. The Flynn, people don't realize he didn't commit a crime, even if he lied, because for a lie to be a crime, it has to be material. And in my view, at least, it can't be material if the FBI already knew the answer to the question. If the only purpose of the question was to get him to lie, they already knew they had the transcripts. They already knew who he spoke to. They weren't learning anything new from the questioning. That a false answer to those questions is not material. And I hope the judge will take that into consideration when he decides whether to accept the plea or not.
Well, I think, again, with the business dealings that occurred before the president was president, it seems from the very beginning, and this is my sense, is that this is what they were after all along. That the special counsel, this was a way to get into his finances. Otherwise, how are you going to get into his finances?
Right, and they shouldn't have had a special counsel for that. That's what the Southern District does all the time, and regular U.S. attorneys' offices do. So the special counsel was supposed to only look at Russia, and as far as I can tell, they found no evidence of crime with regard to Russia, and then most of the indictments have been for crimes, alleged crimes, that have occurred after the special counsel was appointed. These kinds of perjury traps that he sprung in order to get people to cooperate. And, that doesn't really say a lot positively for the appointment of special counsel when his appointment hasn't really uncovered a lot of relevant past crimes, but has helped to create new crimes and found crimes that weren't relevant, taxi crimes, tax crimes, crimes involving bank fraud of people that were close to Trump at some point in time. So I think this will end, to quote T.S. Eliot, not with a bang, but a whimper.
Well, and what people have to remember is that the special counsel, when it has all this investigatory authority, unbridled for the most part, unchecked for the most part, when it came across a document or a communication that it thought, well, it's not quite within our purview, let's kick it to the Southern District. When we saw that, we realized, well, of course, that gives you the ability to get into Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was a lawyer for Donald Trump. Usually, right. Attorney-client privilege will be in effect, except there's a crime-fraud exception. So if you're involved in a crime or an ongoing fraud, that information could be used by authorities. Well, they needed that. They needed that referral. Otherwise, there was no way the Southern District was going to likely be involved to this extent because they didn't have any information. They got it from the special counsel.
Yeah, now clearly we see a collaboration between the special counsel and the various U.S. attorneys' offices, but in the end, all of this could have been done without a special counsel. Routinely, in the normal course of events where you have checks and balances on prosecutors, I've always been worried about special counsel because they operate basically outside of the control system. And I know a lot of people who have experience in government are worried about special counsel. That's why Congress refused to repass the special prosecutor laws. And I don't think this incident in our history is going to vindicate the appointment of special counsel. I think the normal course of events, U.S. attorneys' offices can clearly investigate these matters, and they have a kind of tradition and professionalism. Most of their people are objective civil servants who have worked for years and years and years and do their job every day. I know I'm hearing a lot from former FBI agents that they're concerned and upset about how the FBI was used in this case to spring perjury traps on unknowing people. You go into a meeting which isn't arranged officially through the White House counsel's office. You make the person relax. You tell him that he doesn't need a lawyer present. Then you ask him a series of questions that you already know the answer to in order to conduct a morality test to see whether he's going to pass. I mean, do we really want in the United States for the FBI to be authorized to conduct morality checks on people, give them a chance to lie? Now, of course, nobody should lie. Everybody should tell the truth. In the Flynn case, it's especially perplexing why he wouldn't tell the truth, because what he was being asked about was perfectly legal. Did he have meetings while in the transition? And the answer was yes. There's tapes that prove it. He should have said, yeah, let's next question. But he didn't, and I'm still perplexed by why he didn't do that.
If he did,
one possibility is he forgot.
Well,
Really
to me,
forget.
that's what I've said all along, Alan. Because when you read what the agent said in that memo, they saw no deception. They saw, he was giving them tours of the office, and he didn't seem like he was always like, okay, well, let's sit down. He knew, but he already knew that they knew that he talked to him because with his background, he understood that of course they have access to all the transcripts. He already knew that, so there was no reason to lie because he knew they had the transcripts, and he's not a dumb person. He's smart enough to know that talking to the Russian ambassador about what your policies might be, and hold off, don't get all worried about the sanctions. We don't know what's going to happen. A big deal. Something about this and the fact that they did not have a 302. The interview memo was not done until August, when the interview took place in January on something so important, and that we still don't see the 302 by the actual agents. We saw an interview with the agents, but the agents 302 has not been released, Alan, which again is very odd, very strange.
I would hope that Judge Sullivan would try to get to the bottom of this. You know, normally we say if a person has a motive to commit a crime, that's evidence that he may have committed the crime. When you have no motive to commit the crime, that sounds to me like it's evidence that we ought to look for other explanations other than the criminal mind. But I want to emphasize my original point. Even if he told an untruth, unless it was material, it was not a crime. And how can something be material if the FBI agents already knew the answer? They weren't learning new information. They were just seeking to give him an opportunity to lie, and that's not a proper function of a grand jury. It's not a proper function of a prosecutor or of a FBI agent. And I would hope the judge would look seriously into this before he imposes a sentence.
And then there was some invocation of the Logan Act. That he was engaged in the Logan Act, which is a non-elected official, non-government official carrying on government duties, but he was the incoming national security advisor.
It doesn't matter. The Logan Act hasn't been used for 220 years. If the Logan Act were to be invoked, Jimmy Carter would be in prison. The Reverend Jackson would be in prison. So many people have gone and negotiated with North Korea, with Iran. Right. There's nobody ever invokes the Logan Act. The Logan Act is dead letter, and it would be absolutely irresponsible for any prosecutor to charge anybody under a statute that has been laying dormant on the books for 225 years. There's a concept called desuetude. Now, it's a fancy term, but it's a legal concept that says you can't resurrect a statute that has never been used for many, many, many years and just selectively apply it to somebody. And so Logan Act is dead in the water. Nobody could be prosecuted under that unless Congress were to repass it. And they never would, because it would deny incoming administrations during the transition the opportunity to meet with people that might have important relationships for the new incoming administration.
Well, it looks like with again, but going back to Michael Flynn, there was some threat against his son. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like. That's what was going on here. So he just
from day one, the day he was arrested, I said he was not guilty and he should fight this. And then he couldn't fight it because they bankrupted him. They threatened his family, and he did what 95% of people who were charged with crime do: pleaded guilty, even though some are innocent. Not a lot, but I've had experience with some who say they just can't take the risk of a 10 times multiple sentence if they're convicted, whereas they'll get only 1/10 the sentence if they plead. And I think that kind of thinking goes into the decision to plead guilty, whether a person's guilty or innocent.
Alan Dershowitz, you were great on Friday night, by the way. It was a fantastic show on the Ingram Angle. Thank you so much for your analysis. And principled,
good luck on your new pod.
Principled analysis, which is what we're always looking for. Have a wonderful holiday, Professor. We'll see you on TV soon. Have a great New Year if we don't talk to you. Thank you for all of your contributions throughout this whole year and throughout the time I've been on the air here on radio. So we'll see you on the podcast.